Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. We are at the beginning of August 2038, just past the trade deadline where we were relatively active when all was said and done. We are one game behind the Montreal Expos in the National League East, and we are up 11 and a half games on the fourth and final wild card spot in the National League. So, in a pretty good position with this team to hopefully make the playoffs for an 11th consecutive season. The most important goal for us over these last 2 months of the season is going to be try to get past Montreal to win a seventh consecutive NL East title. Certainly would feel better about our potential opportunity to get back to a World Series championship if we are able to avoid a first round wild card series. So we've been playing better and better baseball every month throughout the year. 478 winning percentage in April, 607 in May, 629 in June, and we're coming off of a 730 winning percentage in July. Feel like with the improvements we've made, the team is as strong as it's been all season. We are also in a situation where our excellent stopper, Lauren Walborn, is now just 2 days away from returning from a hamstring strain that's kept him laid up since the middle of May. He'll need to go to AAA Albany for a little while to hopefully work off some rust and get completely back, but would expect that we will have him back in short order. So hopefully getting a healthy Walborn back onto the team will be one important step in the right direction for us. And then besides that, the goal is to just ensure that everyone else on the team is healthy and well by the time we get to the playoffs. Most notably, our new addition, Max Clark, the 33-year-old, is probably the most talented hitter on our team in terms of being an all-around offensive force. He's a player who, over the course of his major league career, has put up a 136 OPS plus. So certainly a guy that we think can help us a lot over these last couple months as a rental in the final year of his contract. The issue is that he is wrecked physically. So we're trying to keep him healthy. We've adjusted his rest status to be a little more conservative. We're going to bench him if he gets below 94% fatigue level. And then as far as the rest of his strategy settings, he's not available to play defense if he is tired, not even available to pinch hit if he's tired, and we're not even going to let him play at all if he's got a day-to-day injury, even if it's minimal. We are going to put him on the bench. So we're going to try to play him. He'll probably play about every 3 or 4 days in a row if we're only facing right-handers before he gets a rest. And we have him set to not play regularly against left-handers, which should build in some additional rest in the case where we don't happen to be playing right-handers day after day after day after day. So those are the goals. Hopefully we can be healthy, and hopefully we can win a division title when all is said and done in this 2038 regular season. As I talked about at the end of the last episode, right now the Expos and the Yankees are tied for the best record in baseball, and we are just a game behind them. So it certainly is conceivable if we end up winning the NL East that we could also end up with the best record in the National League and possibly even the best record in baseball overall, which would certainly be a nice thing to achieve in terms of hopefully maximizing our opportunity to maximize the length of our run in the postseason this year. And we've gotten the month of August off to a great start. 5 consecutive victories against the Dodgers, the Cardinals, and most recently the Phillies. Walborn began his rehab assignment in Albany a couple of days ago. Take a quick look as to whether he has pitched down there yet. And he has pitched 2 games, picked up 2 saves already. So probably will bring him up at the end of the weekend We'll have to figure out a corresponding move to open up some space on the roster. Did have some negative news. Tim Gaglia, who is now our backup center fielder with the addition of Clark, is going to be out with an oblique strain. So we're going to be looking to the minors to bring up another outfielder. We definitely have some interesting options there to hopefully fill the gap and not make us need to rely on Clark even more in terms of being in the lineup, because we're certainly not going to push him. The goal is to get to the playoffs healthy and then hopefully unleash Clark on the world then with some built-in rest. But with the 5 consecutive wins in August and now 13 consecutive wins overall dating back to late July, we are now a game and a half up on the Expos, and our 69-40 record is a game ahead of the Yankees for the best record in baseball. So we have pretty quickly went from a team that was 4 or 5 games behind the best record in baseball to a team that at this point here on August 5th is now positioned, if we keep doing what we're doing, to have home field advantage for as long as our squad is alive in the upcoming postseason. And we won another 3 games against Philadelphia to sweep the 4-game series in the city of brotherly love. This upcoming week, we've got a 3-game set against Montreal and then 3 games against the Mets at home. Montreal's also won 3 in a row since the last time we checked in, so we're still only up a game and a half on them, but 16 wins in a row at this point as the Buffalo Wings continue to play some incredible baseball in late July and early August. We have made the move to bring Lorne Walborn up from his minor league rehab assignment. That meant that we had to send down David Espinoza, left-hander who's been a middle and long reliever for us this year. He's been totally fine in his first extended major league action, and think he is a big part of our pitching staff going forward, but right now he is caught in a bit of a numbers game. Kind of insane when you look at this pitching staff that we have now. Walborn, who was named an all-star for us despite that injury that he suffered, has a 2.36 ERA on the season, and that is the worst earned run average of any pitcher in our bullpen. The bullpen right now looks incredible. And the starting rotation is also looking better and better every day. Barajas, Shazier, Mendoza, and Ochoa all in double-digit victories here on August 9th. And Juan Estrada, who only has 7 wins, has the best ERA of any of our starters with a 3.06 mark here. So the pitching remains outstanding. And as I said, we've now got Espinoza in the minors, as well as Eric Barbarito waiting in the minors to certainly come and help us in September. And both of those guys could conceivably still end up on our pitching staff for our playoff roster, depending on how they perform down the stretch. I would think it's going to be more likely Barbarito than Espinoza, just because Espinoza is a lefty right now. And with the recent trade for Cameron Johnson, with Walborn, Veliz, Johnson, and Miyake as lefties in the bullpen, hard to see any of them being supplanted by young Mr. Espinoza for the playoff roster this year. But Eric Barbarito, who is 15-6 with a 2.97 ERA in AAA Albany for us this year, 199 strikeouts already, basically just waiting till September 1st to bring him up. But if he pitches as well as we think he might, he could certainly be in the mix to be on the playoff roster, even though he hasn't made his major league debut yet. And our winning streak finally ended at 17 games, but we did end up taking 2 out of 3 at home against the Expos and 2 out of 3 at home against the Mets. So as we reach the midway point here in August, we are now up 4 games on the Expos in the National League East, and we're up 2 games on the Yankees for the best record in baseball at this point. Seifu looks well on his way to leading the National League in steals for 11th consecutive year. He's got the batting average up to 267, which is not where he's been in recent years. He's hit over 305 straight years for us, but still is scratching and clawing his way to an improved season from where he was a few months ago. Alexis Barajas, our ace, who won the first Cy Young Award of his career a couple years ago in 2036, is 14-5 with a 3.34 ERA this year, second in the National League in wins right now. And our young closer Joe Scott, who is 4-4 with 37 saves and a 1.72 ERA, ranks second in the National League in saves at this midway point in August. And we're also the number 1 team in terms of the power rankings for the majors right now. The Yankees number 2, the Rockies number 3. Our division rival, the Expos, are down to 6th overall in baseball. Our stopper, who is now healthy, Lauren Walborn, asking us to discuss a new deal. You can see he's jumped right into his high-volume role on our team as our stopper with 31, 30, and 20 pitches 3 of the last 5 days. Looks like he's still normal in terms of his injury proneness, and he has been a very successful pitcher for us over the years. At this point, he is saying that he wants $12.8 million a year over 4 years on average. I know many of you think we should just sign him right now. I am going to defer to what Dralic suggested. He thought that it's quite possible that the ask from Walborn will be lower if we let him hit free agency. As much as I'd love to bring him back, I don't have much fear that the price will be much higher than it is right now, and it is conceivable that when he hits the market as a non-closer, the price will be lower. So I intend to bring Walborn back next year. We will make the necessary moves as long as he's healthy and still productive over these last couple months of the season to ensure that we pay him whatever we need. It's possible it'll blow up in our faces and all of a sudden he'll be asking for $18 million a year in a couple of months, and we'll feel a little silly for not getting him wrapped up. But it's also conceivable that we'll save some money. And quite honestly, we still have no money available for extensions at this juncture right now. So it's not even really a realistic option for us to commit, $12.5, $13 million a year to him at this point. And the magical month of August continues for the Buffalo Wings. Lost the first game on the road against the Angels. Since then, when we've won 5 in a row, though, 2 on the road against the LA Angels. And then we won 3 back at home against Boston. So the 7th consecutive division title is quickly becoming a pretty realistic goal for us. 7 up on Montreal at this point. And at 81-43, we're 1 game up on the Yankees for the best record in baseball. They've won 7 in a row at this point compared to our 5 victories in a row. And we actually finished the month of August on a down note. We won 4 in a row against Pittsburgh and then 1 against Montreal to extend our winning streak to 10 games. But we lost we dropped the last 2 of our series in Montreal and just lost the first game of a homestand against Washington. So 3 losses in the last 3 days of August are as many as the 3 losses we had in the first 27 days of August. But we have made it to September roster expansion, and we're still 6.5 up on the Expos for the NL East. We are up 5 games on the Rockies for the best record in the National League, and we are up half a game on the New York Yankees for the best record in baseball. So the goal, as we talked about at the beginning of the episode, is to hold on and win the NL East at this point, number one. Number two, keep the team healthy. And then number three, if everything goes well, clinch the best record in the National League and possibly the best record in baseball as well. And before we get into figuring out the four players that are going to join us, I just want to recognize that our ace, Alexis Barajas, was named the NL Pitcher of the Month, 5-1 with 35 strikeouts and a 2.34 ERA, 16-6 record on the year with a 3.24 ERA. Taking a look at the leaderboard, we know Seifu's leading the league in steals, 266 average, so that's kind of where he is at this point. But Barajas still second in the National League in wins, and Joe Scott still second in the National League in saves. And two of the additions to our now 30-man roster should not be a surprise. David Espinoza is back after we sent him down temporarily to make space for Lauren Walborn. And Espinoza, in a couple of stints in Albany this year, was not as good as he was in the majors working out of the bullpen, but still feel like he's probably got a role down the line for us as a left-handed reliever, possibly a fifth starter, or certainly a guy who can pitch as an emergency starting pitcher for us. And Eric Barbarito will be making his major league debut. Ended up a glittering 18-6 with a 2.94 ERA, 234 strikeouts in AAA Albany this year. And he will get to work out of the pen, see what he can do for us over these last several weeks of the season. The two position players that we brought up should not be surprising names either. Jim Arp, who was our starting second baseman at the beginning of the year and really struggled at the major league level. We sent him down a couple of months ago, ended up playing 46 games in Albany, hitting just 227. Worked on his ability to play third base down there so he can be more of a utility infielder for us. So he is back. And then Frank Carranza, who was with us briefly earlier this year after being a September call-up a year ago, hit 296, 36 homers, and 88 ribbies in AAA this year, his first kind of full season in AAA. And he is back with us now for the last month of the season to hopefully give us another big left-handed bat that can hopefully hit a couple of home runs for us off the bench. And I don't want to say that we've got the division sewn up. As we talked about, we've lost 3 in a row. The lead on the Expos has shrunk a bit to 6.5 games. But with a magic number of 24 and the way that our team is playing really good baseball, we're going to get slightly more conservative with Max Clark. We're going to rest him when he's below 95% now, try to keep this wrecked player as healthy as possible. He has been good in his limited action with us, 9 doubles and 6 homers and 28 ribbies and 127 at-bats. He's put up a 144 OPS plus for us and a WAR of almost 2 with his good defense in addition to his excellent offense. So the goal is just to hopefully ensure that he is healthy for the playoffs, because we think he can absolutely be an important asset for us as we try to win a third World Series championship in 5 years. And that bat that he brings to help replace what we've lost over the last few years with the departures of Shamar Jenneret and Bobby Bolig could be a key factor for us come playoff time. And we lost the first game in September against Washington to extend our losing streak to 4 games. Since then, we have bounced back with 4 wins in a row. We've got Seattle and the Cubs at home over this next week. We are up 6 on the Expos, who have won 8 in a row at this point, but we have gotten our magic number down to 20 with those 4 wins that we've had in the last 4 days. And another week in the books, and our team remains healthy and playing great. 5 straight wins to start the week before losing the final game of the week against the Cubs. Go on the road at Colorado and then at San Francisco next week. The series with Colorado could be important at 85 and 58. Still have an outside chance of getting past us for the best record in the National League, although they're 10 games behind us at this point with the good ball that we're playing. Montreal, 8 games behind, is actually closer to us for the best record in the NL. The Yankees continue to play some incredible baseball. They're only 1 game behind us for the best record in the league, but at 95 and 48, we look like we are perhaps going to have one of the best seasons we've ever had with this Buffalo Wings team, at least as far as the regular season when things finish up in a couple of weeks. And unfortunately, we lost 2 out of 3 in Colorado against a team that we have had some issues against in the past in the postseason. So the lead in the division is still 8, as the Expos have lost 2 of their last 3 as well. But we are now actually 1 game behind the Yankees for the best record in baseball as they continue to play incredible baseball, 9-1 in their last 10 with 4 wins in a row. And we have finally had the injury we've been dreading here, of course, that it's September 16th. The injuries are going to start to hit. Not a crippling one. Juan Estrada going to be banged up for 2 weeks with a strained back. So he's going to finish the regular season 10-5 with a 3.18 ERA most likely, but should be hopefully healthy for the playoffs. Batting wise this year, hit 300 for us once again. He's a two-way guy. Had a 129 OPS plus and a 1.9 WAR as a batter, in addition to his 3.1 WAR as a pitcher. So another nice year from Juan Estrada, but we are not going to mess around. We're just going to put him right on the IL. That will allow us to move Eric Barbarito into the rotation. He's only pitched 4 innings for us. He's done reasonably well in that small sample size with 2 hits, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. So we'll get him a little more consistent action in the rotation over these next couple of weeks. And hopefully keep everyone else healthy and well as we just try to eventually get the last 9 wins or Montreal losses that we need to clinch the NL East, and we will most likely clinch the best record in the National League on the day that we clinch the National League East. And we're going to bring up another youngster to fill the roster spot that will be opened up with Mr. Estrada going on to the injured list. Ben Borgen, 25-year-old. We drafted him a few years ago out of college, out of the University of Arizona in the 6th round. 9-1 this year in Albany with a 3.55 ERA after he started 8-3 with a 2.76 ERA in Double-A Utica. 25 years old, as I said, so the left-hander has not had a meteoric rise through our system, but steady progress over the 4 years, or more accurately 3.5 years that he's now been in our minor league system. Looks like a guy who's likely a back of the rotation type of starter for us, or another guy who could be a left-handed arm out of the pen, similar to what we're expecting from David Espinoza. But will be good to see what Borgen can do for us over these last couple months of the season, or last couple weeks of the season, filling in for Estrada. And of course, the injuries just starting to come out of the woodwork here in these final weeks of the season. Steve Anderson, starting shortstop, diagnosed with a stiff back. He made an all-star team for the 2nd time in his career this year. Going to finish with a 262 average, 18 homers, 59 ribbies. Only a minimal impact on his hitting, but a moderate impact on his running, given that at this point our magic number is down to 6 with 4 wins in a row, and we're one past the Yankees again for the best record in baseball. We are going to be real conservative and hopefully at least ensure that if and when we clinch the division title with the days off we'll have while that wild card series is taking place, that hopefully Anderson will be back 100% ready to go for the playoffs if we just sit him over these last week and a half of the regular season. And we just lost our first game of the week at the Mets after a day off yesterday on Monday. More importantly and more negatively, Juan Estrada's recovery is unclear. We are as conservative as possible putting him on the IL, so we are not putting any additional stress on him, but certainly would hope that our two-way star, who's had the best ERA among our starting rotation for much of this season, is back and healthy by the time we get to the postseason. And it ended up only being a 500 week for us. Took 2 out of 3 on the road at the Mets, but we lost 2 out of 3 on the road at Philly. We've got 3 against the Marlins, and then the final 4 games of the regular season at the Braves to finish up the season. 102-53 record at this point. 6 games up on the Expos for the NL East, and the best record in the National League. Magic number down to 2, so hopefully we can clinch in relatively short order. And we are in a flat-footed tie with the Yankees for the best record in baseball in the event that we end up facing off against them in the playoffs. You'll see that Seifu is well on his way to leading the National League in steals for an 11th consecutive year, and he will easily lead the major leagues in steals. Our young outfielder Joe Gallagher is now 3rd in the National League in ribbies. Really perhaps better to describe him as our young DH, since that's where he primarily plays. Barajas tied for 2nd in the league with 18 wins, and Joe Scott, the young closer, has slipped back to 3rd in the National League in saves. The goal, obviously, is to clinch as soon as possible, and then other than that, just to remain healthy. Anderson should be back in a week. Juan Estrada, unfortunately, the injury time for him is still unknown, but nobody else is banged up at this point. And similar to the way we finished off August, we finished off September with 3 consecutive losses. We have clinched the National League East at this point. 6 games up on the Expos with only 3 games left. Still in a flat-footed tie with the Yankees for the best record in baseball. But quite honestly, given how important we think a healthy Max Clark is going to potentially be to our postseason chances, we are going to bench him these last 3 games of the year. He's wrecked physically, as we talked about, but he has been pretty effective since he came over. 295 batting average, 14 doubles, 7 homers, and 35 ribbies in 193 at-bats. 142 OPS plus, WAR of almost 3. Been a very important player for us, but as I said, we are going to be very conservative. Bench him until the postseason at this point to just ensure that we don't end up suffering a real silly injury here in these last few games. I guess you could argue we'd want him out there in the event that we end up with fewer wins than the Yankees. Every win still matters from that perspective, but there's no guarantees that we're going to get to the World Series. There's no guarantees that the Yankees are going to get to the World Series, and there's no guarantees that we won't end up with a better record than the Yankees, even if Clark isn't playing. But at this point, I want to do everything possible to ensure that he's healthy and well for the playoffs. And sitting him for these last 3 games, I think, is the most prudent measure given how important he's proven to be to our offense. And we ended up taking 2 out of 3 against Atlanta to finish off the season. So when all was said and done, 105-57 edged the Yankees by 1 game for the best record in all of baseball. So we have a 7th consecutive NL East title and an 11th consecutive playoff appearance here in 2038. The Expos lost 6 in a row to close out the season, even though they finished with 97 wins, which is the 3rd most in baseball behind just our Wings and the Yankees. Gallagher ended up 3rd in the National League in ribbies. Seifu led the National League in steals. Barajas tied for 2nd with 18 wins. And Joe Scott was 3rd with 46 saves, so no real changes in how some of our top players measured up on the leaderboards. We've already seen that Clark was a pretty useful player after we brought him on board. Cameron Johnson, who we picked up in a trade with Seattle right before the trade deadline, kind of similar to what he did for us a couple years ago. Disappointing in a way, 4.13 ERA, basically a replacement level player. Did strike out 42 batters in 28 1/3 innings pitched, but the fact that he gave up 6 home runs certainly did not help him. That said, he'll still probably be in the mix for a spot in the playoffs for us. Barbarito, after doing okay out of the pen, was 0-2 as a starter, so not the most glittering start to his career. We'll have to figure out who's going to be on the 26-man roster. Clearly, the recovery of Estrada is going to be an important thing that we're going to have to factor in. We will have hopefully about 5 days until we have to make that decision for our divisional series. But right now, when we are looking at the injured list, Anderson should be back and fine for the playoffs, but certainly losing Estrada would be a hit. Other than that, Mike Heiner has some knee soreness, which is going to impact him for 3 days, so that should not be a significant issue. So we checked in on Johnson, one of the guys that we brought up. We know what Clark did. The other guy that we picked up in a trade was the backup catcher, Mitch Houlihan. And I mentioned how he had hit 300 every year that he was with Pittsburgh. His profile to me does not scream 300 hitter, but he hit 379 for us in 58 at-bats. So it was definitely a massive upgrade at catcher, given that we had Ted Jackson struggling to hit a $150 as our backup catcher the first few months of the year, and Houlihan is also much better defensively than Ted Jackson, so he has been a nice addition to the team down the stretch. One other guy that we will check in on is Joe Edwards, who, when we moved ARP out of the starting lineup, got some more playing time over the second half of the year. Ended up hitting 251 with 20 homers and 60 ribbies for us, 129 OPS plus, and a 3 WAR on the season. We're going to have an interesting decision to make this coming off season with him, although his ARB number with his lower playing time is down to a little over 10 million. As we've talked about in previous episodes, unless we make some changes, it's going to be real tough for us to bring back both Edwards and Lauren Walborn, but we're going to try to do our best to be as creative as possible this off season. We'll do our usual deep dive once the season is over, but need to check in on what Deshaun Seifu ended up doing this year. As we talked about, he led the National League in steals for an 11th consecutive year with 932. Still has an opportunity to join Ricky Henderson with 1,000 steals. And I believe that 932 number is right about where Lou Brock was when Ricky passed him 35-ish years ago, 34, 33, something like that, to become the all-time stolen base leader. A bit of a down year for Seifu, ended up hitting 271 after those 5 consecutive years hitting over 300, his lowest batting average since he was 25 years old. That said, in addition to leading the league in steals, he also led the league in runs for the 5th time in his hopefully Hall of Fame bound career. That said, when all was said and done, he was a pretty average offensive player this year overall. But between his defense and his proclivity on the base paths, still ended up putting a 4.7 WAR up on the board for us. And just looked it up, it's 938 steals for Lou Brock. So unless there is some unexpected incident or tragedy this offseason, Deshaun Seifu should pass Brock early next year. And 68 away from 1,000. He has had below 68 steals 3 times in his career in his late 20s, but it's conceivable that by this time next year, if Seifu stays healthy, he'll join Ricky Henderson in that 1,000 steal club. I think it is unlikely that Seifu, who is now 34 years old, will approach Ricky Henderson's career number of over 1,400 career steals, but certainly making his mark. And the one guy that we had who was a number 1 overall pick has certainly put up a very productive and interesting career for us here in Buffalo. And we will find out how Seifu and the rest of our squad does in these 2038 playoffs in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.